So cities and urban areas currently house over half of humanity, and by 2070 will house nearly 70% of the world's population. Some cities and urban areas are really highly exposed to climate impacts. They may be along coastlines, for example, that are vulnerable to sea level rise, but they also house large numbers of vulnerable populations. So an estimated 1 in 7 of the world's population lives in what are called informal settlements, where people lack access to formal housings and other services and infrastructure that will help protect them from climate change.
At SDI, information is power, and the information that we gather, that information is used as evidence. And that's why research becomes very important. We put resources on the ground to gather that information.
We're looking at it through the lens of justice, so we want to understand how there's inequalities between different groups, both in terms of age, gender, inside the informal settlements, outside the informal settlements, and unfairnesses and ethical issues arising. And the methodology that we're using for this project involves empowering the youth themselves to take videos of what's going on in their lives and the communities around them, their families, their friends, and their wider communities.
We need to have your input, please. So I would ask you, please, to contribute. What we are looking for are video diaries.
We mobilized young people in informal settlements existing in 7 countries. We wanted to find out what does resilience look like for them, especially at the face of this global pandemic.
So we did some interviews, documentaries and audio stories in the community, just to make people in the government to know that, okay, this is what's happening.
It can be very challenging because you don't know what next. You don't have the bearing of life anymore. At times you feel like giving up, but you have that spirit telling you to push on.
I would really love our government to consider our youth, because here in slums, we have so many talents, we have so many gifts that people are doing. Some of us here, we actually just need that small push of maybe us going to school and pursue our education. And I'm very sure we'll change the entire city.
You had to fight not for your own self, but for others as well.
You know, united we stand, but one you can't stand.
For our voices to be heard, you need a medium, which is the media.
Young people want to see change happening. Young people want to get involved, but the doors are shut. So in that way, I believe they need to be considered. They do have brains. They do have an eyesight and a vision of where they want to go, but the hindrance would be in exclusion.
So the first principle that needs to be enshrined in adaptation funding and resilience planning is distributive justice, and that means ensuring that the most vulnerable groups are prioritised in terms of interventions, and that all interventions are fair in terms of taking account of all groups and not leaving out some communities. Secondly, we need to think about making sure that all groups are able to participate and all stakeholders have an equal say in planning interventions so that no groups are left out of the planning process. And thirdly, there's principles of remedial justice, which means effectively that adaptation funding has to be on a scale to cope with what's coming, and it's not just something nice that we're doing, it's a wrong that we're repairing.
So this project really exposed me to co-creation of knowledge. My lived experiences were really valued. So being able to kind of like rub brains with such people really gave us even more power. It gave us even more insight and awareness about the very same issues that I've been battling with.
So it's clear that under any global warming scenario from now on, we will need to adapt to protect people and the habitats on our Earth from the impacts of climate change that are now inevitable.
Vulnerability should not be looked at as people are victims, because people do have all the capacity. Poor people have the solutions. They have certain assets in their communities, especially knowledge. And skills, learning by doing is being involved. Participatory research or development. We learn by doing, we bringing in new ideas and putting them into action.